All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Araceli. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of our busy schedule. I know it's a busy time of the year. I myself have an exam tomorrow. I'm sure a lot of you have homework and exams today and tomorrow. So shout out to all of you for being here. It's important that we stand in solidarity with each other. We're going to go through and just do quick introductions for everyone that's at the table, both students and administration. We'll each have 1 minute to say our names, our pronouns, and answer what is at stake for you tonight. That'll be 1 minute. So I have already taken over the minute, but what's at stake for me tonight is the fact that in 2016, I experienced a lot of the things that are happening right now, even at a larger scale. And that kind of fear and unwelcoming environment that I felt, I don't want my future students to feel next year during the elections, because this will only get worse if we don't address it right now. So that's at stake for me tonight.
My name is Liliana Delgado. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a junior here with a major in math and a minor in physics. What's at stake for me is my time, energy, and my health. I am bearing the weight today of thousands of students on this campus and the millions of people who identify similar to me in the world. I am not being paid for the work that I am doing, and it is very labor intensive, and it is taking a toll on every other aspect of my life.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? So my name is Dhruv Rituri. I'm a first semester grad student here from India, and personally, so I use the pronouns he, him, his, and I'm here to build a movement for people that do not identify as cisgender, white, male, and that is very important for me because back home there's people who aspire to be here, that they feel they're welcome here, but that's just not true. And we want to be as transparent in the admissions process as possible, and I want people back home to know without a doubt that this administration cares for them regardless of their identities.
Good evening, everyone. I am Courtney Lewis. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a senior in the College of Agriculture and Life Science, a pre-vet major. I am currently the president of Black Student Alliance. I am here because when I took that role as president, I pledged to represent my community, and that is why I'm here.
Alexa Rodriguez, pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a sophomore, and this is just only my second semester here. So what's really is at stake for me is moving forward, making sure that I have not only a community, but that the school that I go for is a safe place for me and everybody that looks like me, and just everybody in general to feel safe and welcome at an institution that, you know, we worked our butt off and paid for to be at.
Hola, my name is Hugo Perez. I am a junior senior, kind of, credit-wise. I am a transfer student from Iowa Central Community College, so I have 2 years over there, and now I have about 2 years here. Um, Basically, what's at stake for me here is to have the community, people of color, my Latinos, everyone to feel safe in this institution. Because I came here believing that this institution was meant for aspiring people like me to be here. And I want to make sure that I fulfill that promise and I make sure that everyone, is safe here because everyone deserves safety, everyone deserves closure, everyone deserves to be in a good place, and everyone deserves to be home.
Hello, y'all. I'm Trinity. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I am a senior in Women and Gender Studies. I'm here today because I'm really tired, and I know all of y'all are tired, and we're sick of the things that we experience here on this campus. And do I have the time and energy? No, but I'm here anyway. And so that's why I'm here, because I have the will, and I want to be here for y'all and represent and help.
Good evening. My name is Martino Harmon, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs here at Iowa State University. I'm here because I care. I'm here because I'm committed to students, to student success. I'm also here because as a person of color and as a person of this campus community, I don't want to see people hurt. That's why I'm here. Oh, I'm sorry. Pronouns, he, him, his. Thank you. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Wendy Winterstein. I serve as president of Iowa State University. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm here tonight because we are ready to have a very strong conversation with all of our students about the demands that were brought forward by the Students Against Racism. So I think we're going to have a very good start to this conversation. In front of you on your chairs, you have a handout that we put together to summarize the actions that we want to have a discussion about tonight.
Good evening. My name is John Wickard, and I serve as Senior Vice President and Provost here at Iowa State University. My pronouns are he, his, and him, and I am here tonight to present the administrative response from the standpoint of academic affairs. What is at stake for me tonight is that I care, and that's why I'm here tonight. That's why I was at the event on Monday. And I'm here to support you as people, to support you as students, and to support your learning.
Good evening. My name is Michael Newton. I'm the Associate Vice President for Public Safety and Chief of Police. My pronouns are he, him, his. And it makes me sad when I've heard some of the stories and how unsafe people feel on campus. And what's at stake for me tonight is making sure that people feel safe, people feel welcome, and feel like they belong here at Iowa State University.
Hi, my name is Michael Norton. I'm University Counsel. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not. My name is Michael Norton. I'm University Counsel for the university. My pronouns are he, his, him. I'm here because I care about you and I care about the university and I want to do my best to serve you and to serve the university.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reg Chen Stewart, Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion. My pronouns are he, him, his. And why I'm here, or what's at stake. I am black every day, all day. Whether I'm here, whether I'm at Fairway, whether I'm in Beard Shear, I'm always going to be working on these issues, and I'm always going to stay in the fight.
Thank you. So now that we've introduced everyone at the table today, we are going to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we are on.
Okay, there we go. Happy Wash Day Mitakuyo Yashin, Mahankpapa Lachota. My name is Jamie Winters Hawk, and I'm here to remind you all that you are all on occupied, stolen land currently from several different nations and many different tribes. The Winnebago, the Pahotra, the Niayuchi, Jiwere, Omaha, Nia Konsaka, Ponka, Hidasta, Mandan, Dakota, Meskwaki, Sauk, Kikapua, Wyandotte, Potawatomi, Anishinaabe, and Odawa. Reminder, this land is occupied territory and this land is stolen. We wouldn't be able to have this conversation had this land not been stolen. I'd like to just briefly remind everyone here as well that me and my two relatives here, we are all Lakota. This land was also stolen from us. And so we are evidence that treaties without action can be broken just as easily. So we'd like to remind you, action is more important than words.
Thank you.
I also wanted to add that this is our land if you want to put some possession on it, but there's enough room for everybody, except for the people that say that there isn't. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I would just like to emphasize the point of action again. In the Lakota language, we do not have a word for sorry because words are meaningless. So unless there is action behind those words, this meeting means nothing. And I hope that we can all keep that in mind.
Thank you. We're going to take a minute of silence to honor our classmate, student, friend, and family who passed on Sunday night. So if y'all can just join me in that moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Lastly, I want to reiterate that the students here at the table today also are in solidarity with our classmates and students at the University of Northern Iowa, Drake University, and all other students whose campuses have not been able to address their biases and racial discrimination that their students have been facing. With that, we're going to start the meeting. I will be tonight's moderator. We have some rules with that I'll express afterwards, but I want to address why we're here today. So let's take it back to 2015 and 2016, and the fact that students presented demands to the administration of that time to address concerns of representation on campus, to address concerns of financial assistance for students of historically minoritized or marginalized identities, to address concerns of faculty and staff, to address concerns of recruitment and retention of staff, and also to address the ISU Police Department. So this is nothing new. This isn't the first time, but it will be the last time if the administration chooses it to be. So now it's 2019, we're back at it, and like I said before, things will only get worse if we continue to ignore the core problem. So tonight's meeting layout will be that I, again, will say the rules. Students will present the demands that have already been read and presented, and then the administration will respond. And following the administration's response, we will then address again back to the students to see the students' response, if there is one. So rules to follow is that we will we have allocated a opportunity to call for a 5-minute recess if needed at any moment. We ask that speakers do not interrupt each other and that you abide by moderator and the speaking time that we allocate and the order that we have set for tonight's meeting. And for the audience, if you have responses, you are more than free to express those responses. But if any of us at the table raise a fist, specifically myself, I ask that you follow that silence and that solidarity. Any questions on either side of the table? No? Awesome. I'll hand it over to the students.
At the top of our list of our demands is that Iowa State University declare a zero tolerance policy towards racism and anti-Semitism, with demands that Iowa State University expel the students who chalked neo-Nazi slogans, the students who vandalized Bean House and Joffrey Hall, students in the future who threaten or use neo-Nazi language violating the zero tolerance policy.
Okay. The shutdown, the Students for Trump Club that attach neo-Nazi slogans to their political writings as continued harassment and interference in the academic life of hundreds of students.
To fire the student government advisor who wore blackface, and to make sure that future staff engaging in racist behavior or anti-Semitic behavior are also dealt with the same way.
To add a zero tolerance to attacks against marginalized communities, a student advisory board on the campus offices in charge of handling discrimination that is run by students of color, zero tolerance to hate speech, including chalking. The university should be responsible for getting rid of hate speech, such as power washing chalking, and a public statement by Iowa State University explicitly condemning white supremacy.
There's also a demand for mandatory extensive inclusivity and diversity trainings provided by professionals to all faculty and staff. ISUPD extends its current bias training to all officers, not just at onboarding or those serving on the EIO, the engagement inclusivity team, and that future emails regarding attacks on marginalized communities should be more direct, less ambiguous. They should clearly state that the incidents on the email that addresses it, and make it very clear that we do not tolerate that on our campus. And also that ISU administration needs to hold a meeting, which is the meeting tonight, open to all students to check back on the demands, which was met. But as President Winterstein addressed in the email sent out October 23rd, following the multiple incidents of racism and bigotry on campus, clearly we still have much work to do. That's right, and that's why we're here tonight, and we're hoping to hear action following your response to our demands.
Thank you. So now that we've heard the demands that have been presented and the reason why we are here tonight, we hope to hear a direct response to each and every single one of those demands as to how they will be addressed.
Well, I want to begin with a thank you for everyone taking the time to come tonight and to have this conversation with us and to hear our response to the demands from the Students Against Racism. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you have in front of you a one-page handout that reviews the list of actions that the university will take, and we would now like to talk about those actions. However, I want to begin by repeating the most important point I made in my statement last week and in my letter to campus the week before. I condemn racist acts and conduct. Racism, white supremacy, and xenophobia have no place in our community. Many of you have had the courage to relate your own personal experiences, and again, I want to thank you for doing that. I know there are students who didn't feel safe in being able to come forward to talk about their own experiences, but we know their stories are just as compelling and just as important. So I will begin by first emphasizing that we made a public statement condemning racism and white supremacy on October 30th, 2019. Next, I would like to share that the campus leaders, including myself, the senior vice presidents, deans, and other university leaders, will take cultural competency and cultural humility training before the start of the spring semester. Next, I would like to introduce Provost John Wickert, who will continue our response.
Thank you, President Winterstein. Again, my name is John Wickert, and I serve as the provost of the university, and I work with all of the academic deans, all of the department chairs, and all of the faculty at the university. And I'm pleased to be here tonight I, like President Winterstein, want to be clear that I also condemn racist acts, bigotry, and white supremacy. In the demand letter, there is a bullet point under add regarding mandatory extensive training. And I'd like to speak to 3 aspects of training that the university is now committing to. I have discussed this with my leadership team of associate provosts, academic deans, and academic vice presidents, and they stand with me firmly committed to proceeding with these new trainings. First, as you'll see in your handout, we will begin in the spring with training in every academic department on campus as organized by our Center for Excellence Learning and Teaching in the area of creating an inclusive environment in the classroom. Since 2016, our center on campus has developed a curriculum called the Inclusive Classroom Curriculum that includes instruction and training in areas like creating learner-centered and inclusive syllabus, like handling discussions of controversial topics in class, how to create accessible course materials for students of all abilities, and how to manage group projects to ensure that students are treated with respect when they serve on a team in a project-based class. We've piloted that training 25 times to 400 faculty on campus, but that has not been for everybody. Beginning in the spring, we will have training in every academic department on campus, and it'll reach across the entire academic enterprise. Second, the comment was made earlier about the retention and recruitment of faculty and staff on campus. And one way to improve that is to have required training for all search committees for faculty and staff in academic affairs. Whenever we hire a faculty member, and as we hire many staff on campus, there's a committee of people at the university that serve on that committee and help to recruit candidates and help to select those candidates. Training on diversity, equity, and inclusion occurs on many of those committees today, but not every one of them. And so I have worked with the deans, and they, like me, are committed to having mandatory training of all faculty and staff search committees in academic affairs, commencing with the searches that are currently underway. And this will improve our ability to develop diverse candidate pools and to make sure that those faculty and staff candidates are treated with respect and welcomed to Iowa State University. This will extend to searches that I conduct. I currently have a search underway for the Vice President of Research, and I will lead by example and have my search committee do exactly that. Third is also in the area of faculty retention, and I would also say recruitment, and that is mandatory training for all college promotion and tenure committees. Faculty are typically hired at the assistant professor level, and after a period of time, they are promoted to associate professor. That process is called promotion and tenure, and it's a very rigorous review process. Beginning with the next cycle for those promotions, all college promotion and tenure committees will receive mandatory training in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In this area, as well as for the faculty searches, we have talented individuals in academic affairs who serve as either equity advisors in a college or in a human resources capacity, and they are resources available to us to have this training. And to hold ourselves accountable, we will report out each year on the progress that we're making. I will post the progress on my office's website, the Provost Office website, and we will also include the progress we're making in these 3 areas in my division's annual diversity and inclusion report, which is also on the website. And so we will set that out there for you to review and hold me and my team accountable to proceed on these actions. I'm now pleased to introduce my colleague, Mike Newton. Excuse me, Martino Harmon.
Thank you, John. Again, Martino Harmon, he, him, his. And I'm going to speak about the Department of Residence, some of their operations, how they can hold students accountable, particularly for vandalism, training within the Department of Residence, as well as a wider training program through a new course for all first-year students. Beginning next semester, all students that live in university housing will be required to take an annual online diversity, inclusion, and equity course. The training will provide a foundation for future expansion of consistent hall programming related to this important topic. We'll assess the effectiveness of this new online training to determine how it can be used in the future, perhaps in other student venues. Second, the Department of Residence will work with RHA, student government, and key campus departments to explore changes to greatly reduce or eliminate acts of vandalism in the halls. The Department of Residence leadership will submit an action plan to me before Thanksgiving that will detail these changes, as well as other improvements in communications and processes for handling incidents when they do occur. I want to personally thank the courageous students, Liliana and many other students, who came forward to bring these mishaps to light. I want to also apologize to students for what they may have experienced within our residence halls. And I'm committed to make sure that we follow the action plan that the Department of Residence submits. Third, as part of a new student onboarding project, which was originally inspired by student government a couple years ago, this semester we have been piloting a one-credit online orientation course for students in LAS who don't have another orientation course. This course, called Cyclone Core Competencies, includes diversity and inclusion topics, as well as many other topics related to first-year student success. In the future, this course will be offered to all new ISU undergraduate students as a standalone course or integrated in other existing orientation courses. So again, those are 3 action steps related to the Department of Residence, training students in Department of Residence, and a new wider course that will include topics around diversity and inclusion. I will next turn it over to Dr. Reg Stewart.
Thank you. The students were, I think, extremely wise in saying that they wanted a stronger voice related to the work that we do towards harassment and discrimination, and wanted to assemble an advisory board council. I talked to AVP Foreman, and we are absolutely 100% in favor of that. We will be assembling an advisory board, and what we'll do is we'll build a mechanism off of the VPDI webpage for students to express interest, and we'll go through the formal process of getting that set up immediately. The second is I wanted to communicate that the Campus Climate Response Team, people know it as CCRT, it was implemented in the fall of 2017, so it's 2 years old. We're in 24 months of it. With the rationale behind it being, when I arrived on campus, everyone said, Dr. Reg, the institution is too slow to respond. It's too slow to respond. So the system was built to accelerate the response, right? And understanding that after 24 months, there are still some very specific things that we have to focus on and adjust. The most important thing being, we are going to change the name immediately from Campus Climate Response Team. It's our understanding that the response team component does create some confusion. It will be called the Campus Climate Reporting System, CCRS. That will go into effect immediately to better reflect the purpose. Excuse me. Reports through the website are referred to departments who are part of the system, and then we operationalize any intervention based on already predetermined protocols. So we want to know that we hear you related to, we want you to improve the system, and we will absolutely work on that. Thank you. And I will turn it over to Dr. Mike Newton.
Evening again. Michael Newton, Associate Vice President for Public Safety. I touch on the police department and the Department of Public Safety as a whole in these comments. We will continue and expand the annual training that on bias-based incidents and bias training that we do for all officers. We began that training in 2017, and we're going to expand that even further into all Department of Public Safety staff. The Department of Public Safety is made up of police, parking, and risk management. And we're committed to making sure that everyone on the organization is trained and is aware of bias-based incidents and how to respond and how to better handle those. We will also review all of our response protocols for bias-based incidents. And a couple of the last incidents that have occurred, I've heard some comments on how we responded, and it's a time for us to make sure that we review those protocols and make sure that they're effective for everyone. I'll also continue to work with my student advisory board. The Department of Public Safety has a student advisory board, and we'll review and work on campus climate issues. That came up last year in our work, and I know this year the student advisory board, I have no doubt, will engage us in those efforts. In addition, we're going to hold racial intelligence training, which will be held in December for all DPS supervisors. We will then expand that training, and we will continue it with all our officers in the spring of 2020. I think it's important to note that we've also done some work since 2017. We changed the multicultural liaison program. We increased that and changed that into the engagement and inclusion officer program. That program went from 3 officers now to 12 officers that are part of that. We know we still have some work to do. We want to do some more expansion of that program. We've also hired a full-time officer that is dedicated to engagement and inclusion and outreach efforts on the campus. I think it's important to know that the police department is super heavily involved and engaged in I-SCORE and NCORE. We've presented at those conferences. We've been sending staff members. We plan on expanding that and sending more and being more involved in those efforts. We're committed and dedicated to helping every way we can to be part of improving the campus culture and climate, as that's important to us. We're continuously learning, and that's important for everyone to know. We're open to feedback. I want to hear from you. If you want to join our student advisory board, reach out to me. I'd be happy to have you. Now I'm going to turn it over now to Mike Norton, University Counsel.
Good evening. I'm Michael Norton, University Counsel, the lawyer for the university. I have a daughter who is a sophomore/junior at Utah State University. And I was talking to her before the meeting, and I told her that what I was doing, and she said, "Dad, can you just not sound like a lawyer? If you can do that." It's really hard after 30 years of being a lawyer not to sound like a lawyer, but I'll try to express myself in a way that is what I'm feeling. I know that in our society today we encounter a lot of speech that is reprehensible, and it's personally repugnant to me. And I'm sorry that you've had to experience that speech on our campus. As the lawyer for the university, I often find myself in a position where my job requires me to defend the right of stupid and bigoted people to say stupid and bigoted things. And personally, that's sometimes pretty tough for me because that's my job sometimes. When I counter repugnant and offensive and damaging speech, my first instinct, probably like yours, is to stop the speech and punish the speaker. That's my first instinct. But like you, I have to resist that urge because of what the law requires at a public campus. And also I think because the truth is the bigoted ideas behind racist speech can't be changed through forced silence. It can only be impacted when those ideas are brought out to the light and combated with truth. And that's kind of the philosophy around the First Amendment and why I believe is so important on our campus. It's, however, honestly, a lot easier to be a First Amendment advocate when you agree with the expressions that are being offered. It's a lot more challenging and harder when those expressions are offensive and prejudicial and untrue and hurtful. But as a public university, we're governed by the First Amendment and other similar Iowa constitutional provisions that require us to protect freedom of expression. As part of state government, with very few exceptions, the university cannot impose restrictions or punish individuals based on the content of that person's speech or because we don't agree with their ideology or beliefs, even when we disagree with them passionately and with all of our hearts. Any limitations that the university places on freedom of expression has to be content and viewpoint neutral, and must be focused on reasonable time, place, and manner limitations not associated with the content of someone's speech or the viewpoint of the speaker. The university can act against an individual where an individual's speech crosses certain lines that the law does recognize as not protected speech. Where the speech crosses the line to become a true threat, which essentially is where the expression used is a direct threat against an individual that places the individual in reasonable fear of bodily harm or death. And the most recent example we have from case law is a noose around a baby doll in a residence hall. Okay? That's the kind of threat that the court allows us to act on. We can act where there's harassment, which occurs when an individual's speech is directed towards another based on their protected classification, where there's a hostile environment created because the speech is so severe and pervasive and objectively offensive that it substantially interferes with the person's education. Okay? Most recently, the courts have only upheld that kind of exception where there is repeated and individually directed and prolonged verbal attacks on an individual. We can act when conduct crosses the line into criminal behavior, such as when there's an assault that occurs, or a trespass, or vandalism, or theft, or destruction of property, or other related crimes like that. But when the university does take action in those circumstances, we have to be consistent in our response, and the response has to be neutrally applied without regard to the ideological, political, or religious viewpoint of the actor. So in the vandalism example, for example, we have to treat the person who vandalizes the soda machine in the same way that we would treat someone who vandalizes something in a racial way. So we have to treat them exactly the same. As a state actor, the university cannot punish someone because they support a certain political candidate or because they believe or promote a disfavored or unpopular political or social position. We can't punish individuals for having bigoted thoughts or even expressing those thoughts. We cannot prevent you from hearing offensive speech, and we cannot prevent you from seeing racist messages as much as we would like to. The First Amendment's free speech provisions are designed to establish and protect what's called the free marketplace of ideas, and that's kind of a fundamental characteristic of our democracy and our institution of higher education as a state public education institution. And that's because our experience shows us that when we empower the government to restrict speech, these restrictions inevitably oppress the constitutional rights of the minority and marginalized. Would you really want us as administrators to be able to expel you simply because of what you said or what you thought?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I don't know that you would want them to expel you for what you thought. You may want them to expel someone else for what they thought. But what generally happens is when you give the government the power to make the decision of what thought is acceptable and what thought is not acceptable, generally speaking, the majority is going to be the ones whose thought and speech is recognized by the government. That's historically been the case. It's exactly why we have the First Amendment, exactly, because we don't want us deciding whose speech is valuable and whose speech is not valuable. At Iowa State, the First Amendment protection of free speech is a core value of the university, and I think we can create a welcoming and inclusive campus while still valuing and protecting the freedom of expression that's core to our government and to the university. The one thing I would say is just because we have a constitutional right to say something hurtful, it doesn't mean that we should say those things. We can and should choose to elevate our speech on campus and our campus dialogue far above the floor of what is protected by the First Amendment. and we can encourage others to elevate their speech as well. Thank you.
I want to thank my team who have done a great job with me this week to develop these set of actions. These are truly actions that are going to be implemented. They're going to be implemented in the next few weeks in some cases, and in other cases over the next semester. So we are going on a journey with you to make a difference at Iowa State University for our students. I also want you to know that what we've shared tonight in response to the demands from the Students Against Racism, that this is just a starting point. This is not the ending point. This is where we begin to change the culture at Iowa State University. We are going to do this together. We can only do this together. And so we look forward to working with you. We look forward to implementing these actions to improve the culture and the climate at Iowa State University. And I want to again thank the students that came here tonight, the students that have participated in the Students Against Racism, their time, their leadership, and their commitment to bring us to this point. This is a point tonight where truly we can say at Iowa State University, we are on a journey. We are on a new path. We're on a path.
What are the students choosing to do right now at this moment?
We can take a recess. We choose to call a 5-minute recess.
Okay, so students have called for a 5-minute recess, so we'll be taking a break and then we'll come back in 5 minutes so that we can continue tonight's discussion on the response. Okay, thank you, everyone. We're going to come back together. Our recess is over. All right, I believe we are all ready. So before we get started, we have one more introduction to go through.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Gonzalez. I'm a senior in finance and management. I'm sorry I was a little late. I came from a meeting.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. So now we will open up for this discussion, this conversation, however that may look like. I ask that you raise your hand and wait to be called on so that we respect that aspect of no interruptions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right, yes. Liliana.
Hello, my name is Liliana. My pronouns are she, her. And the first thing I would like to ask the administration is that you have yet to address the zero tolerance policy that we have demanded, and that is at the top of our list.
Oh, President Winterstein? You have to wait to be called on. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, President Winterstein, calling on you. You're good.
Okay, great. As individuals, as we sat and talked about this issue, we are all personally in a place where we have a zero tolerance policy for racist messaging, for racist comments, for the terrible actions that we've been hearing about this week. But as an institution, we have to go through a process related to incidents that occur. And these incidents, it requires us to follow those processes, to go through the investigation, and to do what is the appropriate set of steps that we have at a public institution.
Dhruv?
So we don't know how that process will look like, but we want it changed. And just to say that we have a process in place doesn't necessarily mean that justice is being done. We want a new process, one that will give the results that we are looking for. And the result that we're looking for is a consistent application of the fact that we have heard a lot of ways in which we can minimize this event from happening in the future, but we still don't know what will happen if it happens. How do you say that there is a process for that, but we want that process to be evaluated moving forward. Would you want to respond to the efficacy of that process as it stands? Would you want to defend it, or would you want to make that a part of your vision moving forward to address the problems in the process?
Mike, you good?
So I guess I don't know exactly what you mean by zero tolerance. And so, I mean, personally, when I see racism, I call it out. When I see someone who is near me committing a racist act, I call that out. I try to address it. That's what, for me, is my own zero tolerance policy is. And I think that's what President Winterstein was talking about. As an institution, as I said, we don't have the ability to have what you're probably referring to as a zero tolerance policy for statements or bias that you see. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you view it, our First Amendment does not allow us to punish or react to people's thought, even if it's terrible thought. Except for those very small categories that I spoke about, we can't do that. So we can make consistent rules that we apply across the board for everyone. So if we have a vandalism policy, if we say we have zero tolerance for vandalism, that means any act of vandalism would have to be treated exactly the same, regardless of the underlying motive or whether there was no motive for it. So if if you put your fist through the wall, if our zero tolerance policy was anyone who commits vandalism is automatically expelled from school. Okay, let's say that's our zero tolerance policy. If you put your fist through the wall, you're expelled. If you do a racist comment and mar up the wall, you're expelled. But we couldn't expel the person who did the racist comment and not expel the person who put their hand through the wall. We would have to treat it exactly identical. Okay? So we have not done that. We have not taken the position that every act of vandalism is going to result in expulsion. It's a decision that's been made, and but we can't do it just because we don't like someone's thought or someone's speech.
Okay.
If we, for example, if we were to say anyone who chalked in favor of a certain political candidate, we couldn't kick someone out. We could say we're not going to have anybody chalk about
You'll
any
have 10 more
political
seconds
candidate.
just for the time frame. Thank you.
But we couldn't pick and choose, right? So when you're saying zero tolerance policy, we are confined by what
And
we
that's
can
time.
do.
So Alexa.
Yep, Alexa. Well, I think we all know what zero tolerance means. So moving forward, also, we also understand that hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. We're not speaking on that. We are saying that while this is a public institution, it is also ISU who gets to control what is said and what is not said. So going forward, I think that it needs to be clear from the administration that, yes, there is free speech. Yes, you can say what you want, but like anywhere, there are consequences for that. So there's no reason why a zero tolerance policy can't happen. Who can make it happen?
Liliana.
I would just like to reread the front of the demand. Iowa State University declare a zero tolerance policy towards racism and anti-Semitism. So that is addressed specifically in what we are looking for zero tolerance policies, specifically racism and anti-Semitism. So I'm unsure why that cannot be implemented.
I mean, I don't want to be the. We all have a zero tolerance in our own personal belief about those things. But as a university, we can speak out against it like we are here. We can have President Winterstein express speech in her own speech, our disbelief of those things, our personal repugnance of those ideas, and we do that. But we can't, when you say we want consequences for that speech, as a public institution, we cannot impose consequences on individuals for their ideas or their speech. It's against the First Amendment, and we're not able to do that.
Martino.
So let me say one thing that we can do. When I mentioned within the residence halls and looking at policies and procedures and the contract, the residence hall contract, we can have more clarity in terms of how we will handle vandalism. It doesn't mean that the person that kicks the soda machine is going to be kicked out of school, but that means we can establish measures of consistency and accountability for acts of vandalism. That doesn't mean that every instance will be zero policy, because that would mean if you kick the soda machine, you're going to get the same consequences as a person who puts up a racial slur. But we can have stronger measures of accountability. And I think, and I'll say this, what Mike Norton, Mr. Norton is really trying to say is if we were to go after people for repugnant, hateful, listen, I'm sick of it myself. You know, I was a student in the 1980s dealing with this crap. I'm a person of color. I get it, right? I understand that. But if we go after individuals for that reason, what happens to us, it's not about us being sued or losing money or anything like that. What happens is the person that does that, they win. They will win. And the activity and the actions that we're trying to prevent, they are strengthened. It will happen. They will win. So ultimately, what we're trying to stop, we won't stop. And I'll give you just one example. Institutions that have tried to take measures like this typically lose. There are groups that look for opportunities. They look for opportunities to go after public institutions. There are organizations. They make money off of that. So that the one thing we're trying to stop is actually, it boomerangs on us. I can't stand it. I'm sick of it. It makes me sick. But the law gives racist and hatred people a shield. And it's a shield that, as a public institution, we can't break it. We're the government. We are the government. The government protected Muhammad Ali. The government protected the Vietnam protests. They had to. Otherwise, those movements would have been squelched. So I get it. I feel you. I hear you. I've had lots of arguments about this topic, and I've learned a lot. It's hard. It sucks. Sorry.
Thank you. Liliana? I think you had, or Alexa? Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Harmon, to that, like, we all have that anger. We all feel that. And guess what? They're already winning. They're shielded by the First Amendment. They are. We know that. But to adopt this zero tolerance policy is the outcome of the fact that there have already been threats for years on this campus against marginalized identities. This is the consequence to that. You can make that argument. They've already made threats. People already feel unsafe. How long until you stop hiding behind that own shield that you've created? Is it gonna take someone getting killed because of the color of the skin on the campus?
Okay, so my point is, so I'm a little bit skeptical I was a little bit skeptical, I must confess, going in that there would be a zero tolerance policy as an outcome of this, because the truth is that there are external forces involved, and I want to just briefly touch on one thing, which is that yes, the university is is put in a corner by the Constitution, and one could argue that it, in one way or another, benefits people with marginalized identities as well. However, the question really is, why is it always student groups that have to go into these places after chalking has been done and make sure and reassure people that they are safe? I have yet to go into a space where chalking has been done and find an official response and find, one of the people that will be, soon becoming a leader in the administration to take that opportunity to really showcase that, yes, they care about the diverse identities on this campus, and yes, moving forward, that this is something that they individually and as an institution do not condone. Because I just want to point out that the fact that there is anti-Semitic chalking and the fact that there is racist and bigoted hate speech directed towards people that look like me has an effect on individuals that feel that that is the right course of action moving forward. And they're emboldened by the fact that there is no response. So I accept that there might not be a response that comes in the form of a zero tolerance policy, but I am looking for a response I'm looking for any response, to be honest. And that response can take the form of you coming to the place where the chalking was done and distributing flyers to people of marginalized identities, reassuring them that they are welcome here, and or that can take some other form. But the truth is that you only act when we initiate action. And so moving forward, again, I wanna make sure that we come out of this with some sort of changes to the process in which you respond to future acts, because we know there will be many that you will not be able to prevent. So would you be willing to, next time there is reports of anti-Semitic or racist chalking, or if that takes some others, if that hate speech takes some other form, that we will be reassured by you individually in a space that people of marginalized identities can see you and can understand that you do not condone such behavior?
President Winterstein.
So today we did announce an interim policy change, essentially following the University of Iowa's policy on chalking. We said that simply there has been too much chalking on campus at Iowa State University, and so the interim policy has eliminated chalking for everything but events being sponsored by an approved student organization. So this is something that was announced today, and it goes into effect actually on Monday. And then we will be working with student government over the next few months to determine what the final policy for chalking should be at Iowa State University. And then could Martino speak?
Yep, Dr. Harmon.
Yeah, so as President Winterstein said, because of excessive chalking, that's going to change. And it gives us the right to wash it off. Whatever it is, could be a flower, we're going to wash it off if it's not a recognized event. However, what I did want to say is we understand the impact. We understand how that impacts you. Even if you are the first person that sees hate speech chalked before we get to wash it off, or any speech chalked before we get to wash it off. And we have departments on campus, whether it's the Dean of Students office, whether it's the diversity offices within the Dean of Students, whether it's counseling, whether it's student assistants, whether it's people in the colleges, in the student services offices such as advisors. So we have people that can help support students. We understand the limitations of what we can't do, but we can support. Nobody can limit us from supporting. And that's the one pledge I can make without any concern for any loss, is that we can provide maximum support, we can respond, and with the new policy, or the interim policy rather, doesn't matter, it's too much chalking. We're just gonna remove it.
Dhruv.
So we will be seeing you in cases of hate speech that take some other form besides chalking. Will we be seeing you in public forums, or is the answer that you will support us privately?
Is that question referring to Dr. Harmon specifically?
I'm referring to, this question refers to anybody who has worked with the chalking policy.
President Winterstein.
So what you're seeing up here is a team of leaders, and we work together to develop a set of responses to the demands. And we know it's not just us, though. We have a set of leaders in the colleges. We have our multicultural liaison officers. We have our staff in the many programs in student services. And all of these individuals, including us, stand ready to support our students in situations where they feel attacked and marginalized. So I think that's not just this group of individuals at this table, but it's a recognition of who the team is out in the colleges and the departments, in the different units of the university, it's a big team that cares, and it's a big team that is working with our students every day.
Hugo?
President Winterstein, I have a question. When you implemented the chalk policy, was it because was it because too much chalk was the problem, or was it because it was too much racist chalking?
President Winterstein?
So we have a policy that we're going to be looking at, and it's to eliminate chalking on campus.
That wasn't the question, though.
Trinity?
Trinity, they, them, I have to circle back to earlier because I do not appreciate my safety and my livelihood being compared to vandalism, property damage, and political slogans. And that personally is very unacceptable to myself and I believe others with marginalized identities.
Alexa?
Also, to that point, code of conduct for ISU, the harassment and discriminatory harassment talks about that, which is why we're saying these demands can be met. I'll actually read it to you. It's discriminatory harassment is unwelcome behavior directed at an individual or group of individuals based on being a part of a protected class when the behavior has the purpose or effect of substantially interfering with the student's education or employment by creating a hostile environment. That's what's going on. It's been going on, and it's not going to stop until you take a stance. That is where the zero tolerance policy comes into place. Tell me that's not protected.
Mike?
So first of all, I certainly didn't mean to compare your personal experience to vandalism or anything like that. I was just merely using that as an illustration of the issues that we face on campus. So I apologize if I didn't speak clearly to that issue. But as I mentioned, that is an area, harassment is an area where we have the ability to work on. But we also, you know, it's not in a we don't get to decide what meets the standard of harassment that courts allow us to fit into. So we do take that very seriously, and we have Margot Foreman, who is the director of the Office of Equal Opportunity. She deals with that policy on a daily basis. We have taken a lot of action under that policy, and we work. Her office particularly works almost exclusively on issues surrounding that very thing, and so. We do take it seriously, and you're right. It's an important tool to combat that kind of behavior and misbehavior. Absolutely.
Dhruv?
Sorry, I just had one more question, but this time it's for the provost. So if I heard you correctly, you said that it is that many of the faculty within the next year will be taking some sort of a training on diversity and inclusion. Is that correct?
Can I speak?
Yeah, go for it, Red.
Thank you.
Come on.
Yes, I referred to 3 trainings that will be delivered for faculty and some staff in academic affairs. The first is on creating an inclusive environment in the classroom for faculty and on how they do that work. The second is for search committees, and the third is for promotion and tenure committees. The inclusive classroom work will begin in the spring semester. The training of the search committees will begin immediately with searches underway, and the training of the promotion and tenure committees will begin with the next cycle.
Yes, Dhruv.
So I really appreciate that. I recognize that that's a high volume at a state institution such as Iowa State, and we look forward to seeing the results, and we hope that they show change. But my question is, I've yet to go into a class or any sort of training without some sort of a test and some sort of a competency, like whether I pass or fail. So my question is, will there be some sort of an evaluation? Will that evaluation be the campus climate report? And also, how are you planning on evaluating your own success? I know you said something about publishing some sort of a yearly report. What will that look like? What are the parameters for that you are going to be reporting on, if you know those? And as I previously mentioned, thank you for. We recognize that it's a very high volume endeavor, and we look forward to seeing the results.
Thank you. On the second issue of how will it be publicized and advertised, so you can see the results. The results of the training, which departments have completed the inclusive classroom training, which colleges, the number of searches underway, has the training been completed. We will post that on the Provost Office website. The report you mentioned is our annual Inclusion and Diversity Report for Academic Affairs, which we have done probably for the last 3 or 4 years, I think. You can go on my website right now and you can look that up and you can see what that report looks like in past years, and that format will be continued in the future. And the progress on these trainings will become a new part of that report. On your first question about the kind of pre and post assessments, if you will, of the results of the training, that actually is part of the program for the inclusive classroom training. Faculty complete some type of assessment. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do know that assessment is completed at the beginning of the workshop and also at the end of the workshop. And our Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching is actually pretty skillful in doing assessments, and we can compare the level of learning, if you will, that has occurred during those workshops. And I would expect that will be part of the new system as well.
Thank you.
Google.
So, coming back to this, when policy changed on chalk, you took the credit away from students who were the ones who were concerned. That in itself is silencing.
Was that a statement or a question?
It was a statement, sorry.
Brian?
Personally, as the first person to be brought the picture of the vandalism along with the 2 letters, and then discovering the second, the notebook paper, I just find it hard to understand why it's okay for a person to vandalize the house and then attack my identity and just get a slap on the wrist of, you're just going to be charged for the vandalism. Like, there should be more than that, to me.
So what Brian, right? What Brian is referring to is the incident in Joffrey Hall, and I can't go into detail because of FERPA, the Federal Privacy Act, just like we couldn't go into detail about someone's grades. But the individual that was responsible was being held accountable for vandalism. And that individual also opted to do some reflection on the impact and some other activities, but I can't go into detail on that. But we were able to hold the individual accountable for vandalism because it was pretty clear. So I can't say more about that. Certainly it's not, that does not explain the hurt and the harm that was caused by that act. It does not wipe it away. It doesn't mean that it's okay, but I'm just being as open and honest as I can in this space.
Liliana?
I would just like to remind everyone that there were 8 to 12 suspected perpetrators for the first vandalism on my house. So while one person being held accountable is great, there's 8 to 12 that need to be. Also, there has been, well, I completely respect the boundaries of FERPA. There still was no communication to me as the community advisor of that house about whether or not there was conduct processes happening, whether people were being held accountable. I was not informed of that, and that is why I felt like my safety was being jeopardized for as long as it was.
And you are 100% correct. That lack of communication was a failure on our part. And on behalf of the Division of Student Affairs, I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Courtney.
Lewis.
Sorry, you're good.
I just had a question to the team as a whole. What happens when the entire campus erupts? What happens if we all take our freedom of speech into our own hands? How do we conduct a war at that point? Because we all have the freedom of speech to govern ourselves however we would like to with our words. Are we all just going to go into war with different races and ethnicities and anyone that we do not feel that there are in our likelihood or in our condition to condone? How will we address that situation? Do we start defending ourselves? Do we start speaking for ourselves? How are you guys going to take these trainings and put them into action? How are you going to enforce these actions if we can't even see the results and you're not going to recite the results to us? How do we hold you guys accountable if we don't have or see any results?
President Winterstein.
As we worked on responding to the demands, clearly training was of interest to the Students Against Racism. And we believe that the training that we've outlined really is going to move us forward in making a difference in climate, in helping individuals better reflect on their own behavior and how they interact with others. So we are very hopeful that these steps that we've outlined and steps that we'll work on together for the future will actually take us to a different place.
Alexa.
Yeah, so I just want to bring us back to the demands. I am really upset that we're still here and we still haven't had the responses that we need. It should not be on us to take on these demands and present them to you. This was a little bit of the work we did, and y'all took some of it. And with your reply, we knew that those were some of those things you were already going to do without us coming to you. But I still haven't heard an overall apology to all the students who have dealt with this in the past, who are going to deal with this coming up. And just, like, can you say sorry for the fact that this administration and previous administrations have failed to do anything about this? And can you please, the student government has put forward a resolution that is going to specifically call this out. Senate faculty is going to do something about this. You have had meetings with outside organizations like LULAC and the Latino Student Affairs, or the Latino Affairs Office for the state of Iowa. You have all eyes on you to act on this. These instances are happening across campuses, ISU, and you, President Winterstein. Can you govern this administration? Yes, there's the Board of Regents, but you have ultimate say in what goes on here, and you can enact all of these demands. That's why we have decided that we will have a second meeting with y'all, so you can go back and look at these demands again with what we have said, because we didn't just come up with these out of nowhere. A lot of thought came into them. There's been previous demands before that are detailed to the dime, right? And I think that I no longer want to hear what you have done and what you will do. I want to see you take action by taking the first step in addressing all of our demands.
Oh, sorry, President Winterstein.
Certainly. Well, let me begin by apologizing to any student who's had a terrible experience because of racism, white supremacy, xenophobia, gender discrimination, whatever the experience has been. Let me apologize to you for that on the behalf of Iowa State University. That is not what we want to see happen at Iowa State University. What we've done in meeting tonight to present the actions, these are actions that we've developed, actions that we're committed to. These are actions that we are going to implement. However, I have to say, in follow-up to what Mike Norton has said, we cannot break the law when it comes to the First Amendment. And so I cannot do what you're asking. So I am very happy to do a whole set of things that we have outlined here, and we want to do them with you. We want to work with you to implement these actions. I hope that the conversation that we've had with you so far demonstrates that we have a strong team that is very much committed to sitting down and developing a set of strategies and actions that are going to be implemented. And as I said earlier, this is not the end. This is the starting point of what we need to do to improve the climate at Iowa State so that you have a better experience, so that we can reduce the number of incidents that occur. I think that will be the outcome from the work that we've outlined here.
Okay, so I believe it was Dhruv, Alexa, and then Reg, unless Reg is yours specific to, okay.
All right. One of the demands that we were pretty sure you guys were gonna act on was the student government advisor who wore blackface. That seems as though if you are familiar with this scenario, this is somebody who we know has posted on social media that they have appeared in blackface. We have since then not seen an apology, and they continue to be an employee of Iowa State University. So I accept that an apology means transparency and an honest dialogue, but that to me seems like the easier thing to do. Is there something that is any external forces that are preventing you from doing that?
I'm going to continue with the right here that we had, just so that we can, I believe they're going to want to open up to the students. So we're just going to have Alexa and Reg speak.
Yes, and just to follow that, so we were given another date by the administration, Thursday, November 14th, which is when I believe the next meeting will go on to talk about this, because we want all the demands addressed and complied with. And just with that, like, I think that what's missing is this pressure on y'all to take these seriously. Like I said, thank you for taking the time to do your job and comply with some of the actions and take action on these. But the thing is that this is your job, and we have come forward to do some of that. And so we're more than happy to, at the next meeting, hear some additions that you want to add to the demands, whether, if you think it's too harsh to expel that person or to fire that person, and you maybe want to go proceed with, I don't know, other types of consequences for that. We're open to that, but I think the demands as they are, we want those to be complied with. And with that, a conversation of, I heard a lot of caring and wanting to this environment to change from all of y'all. So I think if you're sincere to that, you will really take a look at what you can do, which is all of these. And then if you decide that you can't do that, then I would do some self-reflection as well, that we've talked about this a lot, is whether you are the right person to be the face of ISU.
Reg?
So I did want to honor the request for an apology. And let's see. The thing that's probably the most frustrating is that a lot of what the work that the students put into this are things that we know that we need to do. And it's quite embarrassing, to be perfectly honest, to sit here and have you have to do this work. So I'm sorry.
Okay, so I believe the students are going to open up the forum now so that other students who want to respond directly to the responses that the administration has presented to the demands. So just to reiterate, and ask questions to the students. Anyone who's up at on the panel, so you can ask both students and administration questions.
Hola a todos y a todas. Mi nombre es Carlos Santos, del Departamento de Ciencias Políticas. So, I have a question for that section of the table.
For the administrators.
Yes, thank you. I love that tenacity that you guys have, to come to the 13% of diversity and then tell, I am sorry. I think we don't need an apology. I think what we need is action, and that has been explicitly, being in paper, in our voices. I think we're pretty loud. And I think this is an evidence that those euphemisms that we have heard, I'm not gonna even mention it because it's so disrespectful to all of our existence. I just can't believe the euphemism that they were being using. There is zero cultural competence in this table. Just saying. First of all, I'm gonna talk about the Discrimination Harassment Act, which is part of the policy from ISU. This was effective in May 2016, and it was even revised and updated the October 15 of this year. And it's part of course, of the Office of Equal Opportunity. It's a federal institution, right? So we have to compel to those federal standards. And first, I'm gonna introduce it to all of you guys if you don't know. We're gonna go step by step, okay? I'm gonna take five minutes. It's gonna be really quick. The number one, discrimination and harassment, which is defined as, which my, this lady over here just said it, but I'm just gonna add to it. I just don't wanna mansplain, just saying. So Iowa State also prohibits harassment, which can be a form of discrimination that is unwelcome, which will feel unwelcome, that is sufficient, severe, and persuasive and objective offensive that is substantially interfere with the person's work, education. Harassment might include, but is not limited to threats, physical contact, or violence, pranks, jokes, bullying, epithets, derogation comments, vandalism, or verbal, graphic, or written conduct directed of an individual or individuals because of their race, ethnicity, I know you guys don't know the difference between those two, sex, pregnancy, color, religion, national origin, physical or mental disability, age. I have to mention all of this because you guys don't know what is this. Racial education status, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender information, or U.S. veteran status. And even if these actions are not directed at the specific person, a hostile environment might be created when the conduct is sufficient, severe, or persuasive, and objectively defensive that substantially interfere within or the limits of the ability of the individual work, this is for the lawyer, study, or otherwise to the participation in activities in the university. I am so sorry that my broken accent is so hard for you guys to understand.
Don't apologize.
Let's go for the Academic Freedom Act, which is the section 3.4. Let's go for that one. What exactly is freedom of speech? Informants of this policy must respect the principles of academic freedom and the right of speech. Therefore,
I'll give you one more minute,
thank
Carlos.
you. In evaluating whether the speech has become harassment, as defined above. This is really important, guys. Get your notebooks, because we're gonna fight with this one, okay? 1, whether the speech is accompanied by gestures of the behavior that will cause a reasonable person to fear for their own safety or that of another. And the second one is really important, whether there is a conduct of speech which indicates discriminatory purposes. Am I being clear? And now,
10 more
this is what
seconds.
these guys don't want to mention, the part 3.1, which is the enforcement. You guys have a responsibility to enforce this, including the staff, the faculty, and the student community. Shame on you.
For the sake of time, we will be restricting for a 2-minute limit for the comments and discussion here.
Okay. Hi, my name is Bianca. A few things that I sadly had to write down about a lot of things that you guys said. Let me start off. One thing is promoting a candidate for presidency, and another thing is insulting someone with words. Racism and punching a wall are two different things. You cannot compare that. And another thing, I don't care about your tolerance. We don't, actually, all of us, about your personal views. You work for an institution, which an institution works for the students. So why don't you do something for your students? We're not asking you for too much, but is your concern the money that's coming to you or the care for your students? All right. Second thing you said about they will always win. I understand that they will win because of all the racist things that are going on in this country, but be the bigger person. Stand up for your students. And just yesterday, actually, the report process to reporting incidents, it's bullshit. It's this whole process that doesn't get you anywhere. Why is it that my professor got this email about this process and she had to show it to us because I didn't get this email? Why is it that we're not getting these emails? Explain to me this. Chalking is not enough.
I believe that mic's been turned off. Can we turn it on, please?
Are we good? Okay. Like I said, chalking's not enough. So when someone comes in, like, what if someone comes in and does it without telling you? What are you going to do? And you said you're leaders. What type of leaders are you that you're not standing for your people, all your people? Tell me that. And why doesn't President Wendy speak on behalf? We're directing this to you, not just your administration. You're the head to this institution, so please do something.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? My name is Arena Glasgow Boyd. I'm a second year grad student, but I've been here since my undergrad. So this is not new. It's gonna continue to happen. It has been happening and nothing has been done. One of the things that I wanna address is I appreciate you all coming up with some training, but why is it online training, right? Like we already seen that Title IX training, it does not work. It does not change anything, right?
Yep.
So what that's telling me is that you all don't care enough to actually have people go through things, right? And when you talk about, oh, difficult conversations or difficult topic, my identities aren't difficult, right? So I appreciate the trainings, but online training is not gonna work. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, I have a comment on the process. Hold on. All right. On the process, when it comes to the process of reporting bigoted behavior, bigoted language, it's the exact same experience that we're all having, like right here, was my personal experience with wanting to make a comment about a professor, about a TA. There are multiple people who are employers for the university who have made very problematic context for things about their own field that they should be educated on. And the process for reporting that was every single person at every single level said it's out of their hands, that it's not their responsibility, it's somebody else's. So I'm running all the way back and forth across campus, someone saying, go to this one, go to that one, like mommy daddying me. But then y'all are doing that to us right now. And like, you not want this responsibility to be on us. We're being nice being here telling you this. That's all I have to say.
Hi, I had a couple of questions. So in particular, when you state that students are going to be required to take the diversity and equity and inclusion training, I think it's really important that we know the context of what required means, because I know from experience that when these inclusive trainings are required, I feel like I've done them and a lot of my friends have been like, I don't do those. So I think that it's really important that we know what that requirement is. Are they not going to receive the keys to their dorm if it's not done? What's going to be the stipulation for that? And I also would like to sort of address something else, and that is, while I recognize that you work for the government and you are a public institution, it's really important to recognize the government is a colonial power ultimately. It's been created off of colonialism, and so I think it's really important that we are able to keep that in check. So I do ask whether or not these federal policies that you guys have to go and abide by are those public knowledge, and by public knowledge I mean, are they easily accessible for the public? Can we find them within a single Google page? or are they on your website? Have you made those available to the public? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of the students in this room are going to go on to be, you know, future politicians, future lawyers, and we have the opportunity to really change the way that language works, especially as people of color. So I think one of the most encouraging things that the institution and Iowa State in general can do is provide us with those policies, so that way we know what the context you guys are working in and what the context we need to be changing publicly, nationally, by state, whatever that may be. I think with the being provided that is something that you guys can do to sort of pass the baton.
10 more seconds. Oh, did you want a response tonight or?
Tonight, next meeting, whatever.
Is there a response tonight or will we wait for next meeting?
I can respond to the online training also. Dariana asked the same question. So certainly an in-person training can be more effective. The reason why, and we may, maybe someone may want to get more information on the actual course, but the reason why we're trying to do the online training as a first next step is because we have 10,400 plus people who live in the residence halls. To try to roll up a in-person training will take a long time. We felt that it was important that we do something now, right now. And to reiterate the statement that I made earlier, the online training provides a foundation that we can build on additional programming in the halls. So they can use, so they can use the online training and build on that with additional programming. So it won't be just you took the online training checkbox, you move on. We can do some other things around that. As far as your question about required, we're really trying to define that, but what we really want to do is provide incentives and hopefully then people will take it and take it more seriously. But because of the residence hall living requirement, we know who took it and who didn't take it. So we can follow up. Hey, you haven't taken it yet. You know, we need to get you to take that. So that's the reason why we're structuring it the way we're structuring it. But it's not just intended to be you took it, great, have a nice day. We can do additional programs and use the themes of the training based on it. And I believe there's a pre and post training. I don't know if you wanted to expand on that, Dr. Red.
No, I think the direct answer to the question was to get the education and training to as many people as quickly as possible from just a functional standpoint. There is a pre and post in this product in which the students take an assessment in the beginning. They take the training, they take it at the end. There's a lot of components to it, and this is not the format for it. But I think that it is an absolute on-point question that says that online training alone is not going to be sufficient. But it's an important first step.
I want to recognize that we do technically have only 15 minutes left of the meeting, but if all of you don't mind, the administration is going to honor the rest of the individuals who are currently waiting to speak.
You invited students up. I'm a faculty member. I'd like to seek your permission.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Binkin. I'm an associate professor in history and Latino studies. I want to first acknowledge the students and just say how fantastically awesome you all are. And I know I, for one, am proud. If it doesn't sound too condescending, proud of you, and I've been proud to have been there with you at the protest, at the campus conversations, and all of that other sort of stuff. I want to sort of second what some of the other folks have said, and I think some of the things that the administration is starting to understand. One in particular, the communication about all of this stuff. It could be better, and I appreciate Martino, your comment in particular. I was at the campus conversations, and one of the things at my table, the students at my table were angry, and they were angry because they didn't know, or they maybe heard about one thing, they didn't know about the list of things. And what we talked about is basically something similar to like the timely warnings that we get via the Clery Act related to some of these incidences, so students can be aware of what's going on. I think in addition to that, like the letter that got sent out, that should have maybe come at the beginning of the process and not at the end, and it probably would have been received a lot better. The training and all the stuff that's been laid out here, I think is huge. These are the kind of things that frankly, we've been asking universities to do for quite a number of years now, and so it's really, really huge. And I think one of the things that we know is that it has to start at the top, and so to see it starting at the top is really, really important. I do, however, want to acknowledge that a lot of the training and a lot of the knowledge that students are going to get—
10 more seconds.
Thank you. Is going to come in the classroom, and we're educators, and we really need to do something about the diversity requirement because I don't think that it's working. I would invite everybody really, really quickly, look up CAAB 1460. It's a California bill.
Thank you.
So I just had a question specifically for the legal team. Since the university seems to be incapable of even being able to affect laws or really changing policy to cause consequence, is there a way to escalate this to a higher level, to like the state government or anything above, so that way we could affect a change in these laws? Because if this body isn't capable or does not have the authority or power to do this, is there a way that we can cause those who are in power to change this? I just had a question. Yeah.
Is there an answer?
So, I mean, you can be active like you are. You can vote. You can choose candidates who support your ideas, and you can communicate with those candidates. There is power that can be done through our elected officials and through your representatives. So yeah, I think you can have a huge impact on that.
I will also add, student government does have legislative ambassadors that can be utilized to take this to state government.
Okay, we're lowering it. Hi, I'm Tony. I use they, them pronouns. And I would just like to address that I do not believe that, y'all can't do anything. Y'all can fire the person who used blackface. The fact that there are people at this school that show racist behavior, it's telling of the school, period. So the fact that y'all didn't want to do anything about it and decide to keep someone who does that on your team really shows that people like me are not welcome at this school. And along with that, the fact that students here feel threatened and unsafe is when action should be taken. So the fact that you're saying you can't do anything is very frustrating to us, and we know that you can do something. And also, I'm tired of hearing about the First Amendment. I'm going to be fairly honest. First Amendment does defend everyone's ability to speak up, but if it makes someone feel unsafe, that is a line that is crossed, and people feel unsafe right now, and it is very different than the examples that y'all have been giving. So it's very frustrating that you're using the First Amendment to justify white supremacists being on this campus. Just to add to the evals, what are you gonna do about current faculty that are here that are showing this kind of behavior? Because we've heard multiple stories and people have reported multiple times that there have been staff at this school that have done microaggressions and things like that and made students feel unsafe. So yes, we have evals for future faculty, but I have not heard anything about addressing issues with current faculty and firing anyone that has been reported.
Hi, I'm Shay, and I also use they, them pronouns. I did want to put it out there. I had a panic attack about an hour ago, so I don't know how this is going to go, but I do feel like I need to say things. So I do want to put it out there that personally, if the staff and faculty at this table and the legal team and everything actually cared about the racism and white supremacy and transphobia and all the oppression going on in campus, I think the conversation would be going very differently than it is right now. And I've heard a lot of you tonight giving yourself pats on the back for what you've brought to the table, even though, like, it's not enough. And we've clearly outlined things for you that will solve a lot of these issues that we're talking about, and you've done, like, none of them. And you did mention how the First Amendment is, like, limiting what you can prohibit is said on campus, like you can't get rid of the hate speech, but a lot of us in the back are looking things up, and the use of chalk and expression is technically a First Amendment right. So for you to be able to prohibit that, you're also able to prohibit like hate speech. You did also bring up that if the bigoted chalk upsets me, that can't be taken away, then I can go to staff members to talk about it. But personally, I've had transphobic experiences with staff, and I know my friends have had racist and sexist and terrible experiences with staff. And like, I want to know what you're actually going to do about that, because tonight everything you said has been super vague. All the training you're mentioning is vague, and it doesn't actually help.
Thank you for being here and for sharing.
Hey, my name's Anna. I also use they, them pronouns. As far as I know, freedom of speech does not protect hate fighting words, which can be defined as words expressing an insult, especially of an ethnic, racial, or sexist nature, but not limited to that. I'm pretty sure that when Heil Hitler is chalked on Central Campus, that is a fighting word.
Two quick things. One about the training. This thing says faculty. I know we don't care about our lecturers and graduate students, but can they get this make-believe training as well? The reason I call it make-believe is because when you were describing it, you said faculty will be trained to manage students. You actually said that. So how good is this training when you're still trying to control us? One big thing I want to say is I wish y'all were trying. President Winterstein, you said you want to work to reduce racism. Why not eliminate it? If we're just working to reduce it, we already failed.
Hi, Michaela Schote, senior in agricultural business. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I would just like to bring to everyone's attention who people were allowed to marry, where people were allowed to sit, what schools people could go to. Those are all things that in the past have been controlled by laws and by government. Legality does not determine ethical and moral rights. Us as students, sitting up here, students who weren't able to be here tonight, we know what side of history we're going to be on. So I hope you all consider that and decide what side of history do you want to be on, and are you going to fight for your students?
All right, so we're gonna open up now for some closing statements that the students want to make. So I believe Dhruv, you want to speak first?
Sure. One of the things that we passed to you physically today was, I believe, a step-by-step guide on breaking student organizations. I hope you all received that. One of the steps in that is making sure that we get to the summer without any concrete action. Summer is really when things are refreshed in people's brains. And so I encourage us to find a solution. Like, I understand that there is a process, and this conversation is one of many that I'm more than willing to partake in. But we want to make sure that something is done before the end of the spring semester. And just to ensure that that's going to happen, I did manage to get a meeting with the Indian ambassador in the spring of 2020. And so that will be one thing that we will potentially talk about is my experience of institutional racism. And I just want to point out that there are many things suggestions that we've made today that we hope that you will consider in our next meeting, because those are very hard to explain to somebody who is looking at it from the outside as to why the institution couldn't just go ahead and fire somebody who wore blackface, or why the institution chooses to call vandalism and hate speech the same thing, or why the institution does not join us in public condemnation wherever hate speech occurs. You know, it's one thing to offer to help us in your private spaces, but why not just come out and, you know, wherever this occurs, because let's face it, it's gonna occur sooner or later, just make it a part of your schedule. If it occurs, you just go there, you shake a few hands, you pass around, you know, some free swag, and everybody sees, especially outside institutions, they see that you've humanized this experience for everybody involved, and that, to me, that, you know, that just seems like a really hard thing to explain to somebody who asks you, why is your institution not doing this? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna say, but I just want to point out, yes, the summer is when we're planning on making sure that this stuff gets done.
Who else? Trinity?
President Winterstein said multiple times that this is the start and that this is the beginning. This is not the start and definitely not the beginning. We've had these issues before this institution became a thing. We'll have it probably after this institution is burned to the ground, and we'll continue to fight because inaction is action, and you all have a part in this, and we all have a voice.
Ugo?
So I would like to thank the audience for being here. Y'all need to know that this institution exists because y'all exist, okay? Without you, they wouldn't be here. You guys represent the institution. They need to follow that, you know? Honestly, y'all are paying tuition to go to this institution. The moment they start losing students because of incidents like this, they will start talking. Because honestly, the money also is what makes this institution. So I want y'all to know that you have the power, you have everything to offer to this institution, and you make sure that your voices are heard. Because the moment they start losing students, they start raising their tuition. So I just want y'all to know that you have the power. It's we the people, for the people, by the people, and that's what our Constitution says. And this administration needs to know that if they're representing a government, they need to know that these people are going to represent the administration, okay? That's all I gotta say.
Alexa?
Yeah, just to the administration, the only way to reduce attacks is to make them unacceptable. And with that, I just want to remind y'all again, we're not moving from our demands. We can add to them, but at the next meeting, we hope to hear that you will comply with all of them. And like I've said before, we've had these discussions too many times. We can't keep doing this. We are in a pivotal moment in history where this is not acceptable in our country. It should not be acceptable in our institutions, and we are serious about this. We are talking, if you can't make the change happen, we will get people who can make the change happen. You have a legal team who can help you make these happen. Please use them. And again, this is not we against you. It should be us against them.
Courtney?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out here and voicing your opinions. I know that a lot of you don't feel supported, but I just want to say it's important to have a family or someone else that you can communicate to. Yeah. So if you do not feel that authority figures or anyone is there for you, that you have someone. So just keep your outlets and continue to push for your rights, and having a support system. And we're going to be all right.
Liliana?
I would like to remind everyone that racism is a system, and it is perpetuated by a system that is working as designed and as intended. So it's not broken, it's working how it should be. Secondly, I don't want allies, I want accomplices.
Brian?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out. And just one other thing, I'm not satisfied.
Are there any closing remarks from administration?
I would also like to thank everyone for coming tonight. I think we've had a good discussion. I think we've had a set of great actions proposed here tonight. I hope that you'll work with us to implement these actions. These truly are steps forward. So we look forward to working with you to move forward on the actions that we've outlined.
So with that statement of President Winterstein, is that an acceptance to that second meeting? And we will know next week the times for that meeting so that we can address the additional demands that students have just presented, the specifics of these demands, whether that's next week or the week following. So not accepting the meeting? Get back to us for a discussion? Okay, so they'll get back. Is there a time frame for that? Get back to us? We'll be in touch. So can we expect at least a response by next week, next Wednesday? Certainly a response by next Wednesday? Thank you. Yes. Thank you everyone so much. This is our meeting. I want to reiterate what Courtney said. Make sure you have that support system. Look next to you. These people are all in this fight together. We're here together. Love you all.